So yesterday we were in the first part of our section 1.3 related to the 12 basic functions, and we're going to continue working with those basic functions, but we're going to start changing things a little bit. And today, focusing on changes that are called transformations. So what we're going to deal with in each of these problems is we're going to start with a basic function. So our 12 basic functions, you'll want to have those opened up in your book and just use them as a reference. But for this particular one, we're looking at for these four questions, how this graph changes one of the basic functions. So it's important to kind of know what the basic function is. And in this case, it's absolute value. So we're going to be working with y equals the absolute value of x. And we want to know how is it changed from that. Now you can always use your calculator to help you out with this. I have right now just the basic absolute value graph indicated on my screen. And so I want to know then, for this problem at least, is what about 5 minus the absolute value of x? How has that changed things? And for now, we can just look at the graph and see what happens. And so I have that also plugged in here. I'm going to highlight that, and then you'll notice that it does this one. So what does that do to the graph is what we're going to be looking at, and we have some specific questions. I'm just going to get rid of the old one and just look at the new one here. And so question number one, or question A, is on what interval, if any, is the function increasing? Remember, increasing means going, if you're going from left to right, where is it going up? Well, I see on this side of the graph it is going up, and so this is our increasing interval. The only question here is, or the only thing that we have to be careful about is if it's increasing, how do we represent that in interval notation? Remember that it goes left to right, and if it goes to the left forever, that means negative infinity, and it goes to the very middle of the graph, and so that is going to be at 0. Now, since it does actually reach this point, we're going to put a square bracket around 0. The other question it's asking is, are there any intervals where it's decreasing? And so we'll comment on that as well. The decreasing is just the other half of the graph. I'm just going to draw a quick sketch of this so we just have it. But that's the other half starting at 0 and going to infinity the other way. So that's square bracket 0, infinity on that one. You'll be answering these questions for a number of different types of graphs. B, is the function odd, even, or neither? I'm not asking you to prove it in this case. I just want you to see if you can recognize that behavior. Since it is symmetric over the y-axis, that makes this one even. C, give the functions extrema, local extrema. Well, we have a point right here that acts as the maximum for this one, and so we've got the point 0, 5. If you investigate on your graph, you trace it, you'll find that that's 0, 5. And so the function's extrema, or local extrema, it has, C, a local max at 0, 5. Now, every once in a while, you'll see a choice, like if there's a multiple choice question, it'll ask you for the local max. And if that's the case, you want to make sure to use the y value. So 5 is really the one that we're concerned about here. If they only want you to get one value, choose the y value for the max or the minimum, and that kind of thing. And then finally, part D, how does the graph relate to a graph of one of the 12 basic functions? Well, we already established that it's related to this function y equals absolute value of x. But one thing you might notice is that it's flipped, and it's flipped vertically. So oftentimes we'll call that the x-axis flip. So it's flipped over the x-axis is one thing, but it also started here and it moved up to this point, and so we'll say that this goes up 5 as well. Those are both considered transformations. And so, again, this example is just to show you the questions you'll be answering on several homework problems. That the questions will be exactly the same. It's just going to be the function that you're working with that will be different.